Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Steve Chiama, and I'm the owner of the Action Coach franchise in Fairfax, Virginia. And I'm your host today of the Business Spotlight podcast. And today I have the pleasure to introduce Scott Woods, the president of public private partnerships at Ready.net, as my guest. And today we're going to talk about Scott's business, his journey into business, challenges, best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to build and operate a business. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when a new show like this drops. So Scott, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today. And if you would, please give us a little bit of background about who you are and tell us a little bit about your business.
Will do. Thank you, Steve. I want to first start off by thanking you for this opportunity. As we talked in the lead up to this, I think what you're doing is very important. That in the business community, particularly in entrepreneurship, we learn from each other. And so, if this helps
Mm.
someone, a young executive, an old executive, a new entrepreneur, then that's what I would like to contribute to the industry. A little bit about me, Scott Woods, as you stated. I am president of a tech company. I'm based here in the Washington, D.C. area. Our offices are right downtown in D.C. But I've come to business from a really interesting angle, combining both public policy and law. So I started as a public policy intern in the government here in the local DC area.
Mm.
I was just laughing. I've been in DC now for about 30 years, which is probably 28 years longer than I thought. But also, worked in the federal government, two different stints, but also worked in the private sector as a regulatory attorney with two pretty big DC law firms before going back to government, running a couple of big programs in Department of Commerce and NTIA, and then ultimately about 4 years ago, a little bit more than 4 years ago, made the jump to join a technology startup to open up and run businesses primarily targeted in the broadband and telecommunications sector, which is my background. And ultimately, we work with a lot of state and territory broadband offices in the provision of the Broadband Equity Access Deployment Grant Program, and other initiatives, both federal, state, and local. So it's again a pleasure to be with you here today, and I look forward to our conversation.
Awesome, awesome. Let's start a little bit about the business. How is it structured? What's the ownership structure? Are there investors? Are there partners? Are there what's the structure of this business?
So I'll start with our company structure. We're a public
Mm-hmm.
benefit corporation, which you don't see
Mm-hmm.
very often. And I often say our goal is not just to make money, right? So any
Mm-hmm.
private enterprise, you're right, the goal is to be profitable and maximize revenue. That's undoubtedly is one of our goals, but I like to
Mm-hmm.
use the word just. So as a
Mm-hmm.
public benefit corporation, we reinvest a lot of our income and resources back into the company and to our employees. And then from a mission standpoint, our mission is really simple. It's better services for more families and households at low
Mm-hmm.
cost, right? And so whatever we do in the tech sector, whether it's broadband, whether it's in telecommunications generally, AI and edge infrastructure, it is always to that goal is to help more families, more households, at
Mm-hmm.
lower prices achieve sort of competitive
Mm-hmm.
redundancy in all that we do in the tech sector.
Very good.
We have two who are co-founders when we are venture capitalist backed, so not from traditional private or hedge fund, but they have a more of an angel investment, longer term, right? And
Mm-hmm.
get a little bit of a longer runway to do things and figure things out than
Yeah.
your traditional approach of private backing and private investment.
Does that give them some voice in how you approach the business?
I think the relationship with the board is unique. I think we rely on them more on insights.
Mm-hmm.
I think and I don't want to disclose who they are, but individually, they're all very accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And so we rely on them to, bounce off, ideas and get
Good.
input and, not more so on direct governance, but really
Mm-hmm.
more, are we thinking the right way? What should we be thinking about next? Advise
Okay.
us on how to run through, this next, whether it's initiative or this next phase of growth.
Hmm.
that we are as a tech company. So where we started, 5 years ago as a company being founded, where we are, 4 years ago since my joining is totally different. And so we're on this really, really good development growth curve that requires, innovative thinking on how to navigate it, but what we look like coming out of it.
Thinking about a tech company in this tech environment, um, starting up a business is one thing. Trying to figure out through an economy how to grow a business is another thing. And then doing it in a technology world where the technology seems to change every week and a half. Um, it's got to be a really interesting set of challenges.
Yeah, it is. It's my day is often filled on, delivering for, our existing customers and customer base, thinking about, what comes next,
Uh,
but also strategizing for the future in an industry and sector that changes. It used to change by the year, now it changes by the week, it seems like. There's always some new developments coming out, particularly in this age of AI,
mm,
that is really is transcending the way I think businesses and companies and corporations think, moving forward.
very good, very good. That kind of following up on that one. When I look at a business that's in the early, kind of relatively early phases, um, there's an awful lot of hats to wear. I mean, there's a marketing hat, there's a sales hat, there's a production hat, there's a finance hat, and maybe there's three or four hats in each one of those. What are the hats you find yourself still wearing in this role, besides just overall strategy?
Oh, damn, all of them. Like you said, what's not written or probably not written enough, particularly when you join or start a startup, is you just don't have any processes, right? So you're building sort of internal company policies and structure, but also, reacting to and trying to strategize for, company growth. And so I probably wear, as many of my other colleagues, multiple hats on multiple days, given what's in front of us. And then don't let it be, I'm not going to say a crisis, but something that I have to respond to immediately.
Hmm.
Then
Hmm.
I'm wearing multiple hats at the same time, whether it's, a legal review looking at, contract, whether it's delivering for a customer through a particular delivery, whether it's changes in the structures or governance or rules, right? We just went through this a couple of years ago with the, major rewrite of the rules for BEAD, and that changed the entire delivery system and structures, for our customers just about a year ago, almost to the days when we've had to pivot to accommodate that. So it's very unique. I think people sometimes, don't really distinguish between, a true startup versus, a venture that's been recast or that has some
Yeah,
structure and processes, and you're joining, sort of a traditional company structure and group.
right.
When you're joining a startup, I mean, it's literally you're literally driving the bus, the rocket, and figuring out, where the stops are at the same time.
You
It's pretty unique. It's
you
a
feel
pretty
like
unique set of challenges.
you're designing the plane and building the plane while you're flying the plane.
Right now it's a rocket ship, right? So it's the and hopefully not the one that explodes on the platform. It's the
Uh-huh.
one that, we want to actually get out into space and back. So yes, it's definitely it's not for the faint of heart, right? So
Uh-huh.
if you want a traditional, roadmap and, I want clear lanes of roles and responsibilities, joining a startup is not going to give you that. Like that's what
Probably not
we're
the right
working
place.
towards. I'm working towards that, but that's not a prerequisite for starting this out. But that's part of the challenge, and that's part of the aspect of this that I really like is that you get to figure out not only define but execute on what it is that will work. And so it's really challenged me. It's really expanded my capabilities and my
Mm,
growth, I think, and
yeah.
it's definitely something, though, I want to be on the back end of and want to develop more of a smoother, right, landing and trajectory as we continue this journey.
Not the least of which includes how do I pick the right people
Yes.
for the roles that I am filling in, and how do I onboard them so that they're productive in a reasonably quick period of time and doing the right things when I need them doing those things.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I've had really good mentors that have ingrained in me sort of some key leadership principles. And number
Hmm.
one, I believe this wholeheartedly, is you got to hire people who are smarter than you are. If you are the smartest person on your team as the leader, that's a problem. Now, that's not to say, and you have to take your ego out of it, and that's
Hmm.
a challenge sometimes for entrepreneurs and for business leaders. But again, at the rate that technology changes, I'm really fortunate. I work with, and I have just in the team and in the company, literally some of the smartest individuals on the planet. And our CEO has a saying, we all have our superpowers, and we believe that. And so I truly believe that I have a superpower that no one else brings to the table. But I also have to invest and ensure that the culture that we're trying to create and maintain is also not impacted as we bring on these very smart and talented people. But to a person, I believe that wholeheartedly. You've got to hire the absolute best in the field, and as a leader, you can't allow your ego to get in the way. Now, the nuance is when you are operating a team or a company with very smart individuals, you also have to manage the culture. And you have to manage the fact that human ego and human hubris is all
Yeah.
a part of this growth and development.
Yeah.
I challenge my team to, you may not like the decisions that come down, but we have three main rules. We have respect for each other. I have a rule with my team, particularly my leadership team, is when the order, whatever it is, when it comes down, you may disagree with it. Your job is to execute on it, though. But what I
Mm.
encourage all of my folks to do is make a note. And I did this as a young lawyer coming up and young policy. There were things that I noted that if I were ever in that position, I would make a different decision or I would do something differently. But I did it quietly in my mind or taking notes, never openly. So when the order came down, or the division director or the practice group head, or in this case, the CEO, when it says we're going this way, it's my job to execute on it. Whether I agree with it personally or not is irrelevant at that point. But I do take notes and say, if I am ever in this position again, here's what I would do differently or not. Here's what I would want to take
Mm.
into my decision-making process, to
Hmm.
reach the same or similar result.
Good, 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 good. Very good. Yeah, outcome is what matters
Yes,
first. Um, there is an aspect of how we got there because we want to make sure it's legal and ethical. Um,
absolutely.
and a few of the other things. There are some constraints that we want to stay within, but it's the outcome, and part of the outcome in a business is how much did it cost to get there?
Yes. How much did it cost, and what price are you willing to pay to get there? Literally and figuratively, right? Because there's
Yes,
a
it isn't
cost
just
of
money.
personnel and resources, but there's also the impact on your health and wellness and physical
Hmm.
well-being. And so one of our
Hmm.
company virtues is also making sure that as we work extremely hard, that we're protecting professional well-being, personal well-being, mental health well-being. And so the balance is, how do you work as hard as you can for as long as you can, but also take the time to, protect what you need to protect, and time away from the company. And that is a delicate balance that
Oh,
I am
yeah.
dealing with on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, depending on, what it is we're delivering for our customers.
Very well. Now let's pivot a little bit and let's talk about customers. Who are typical customers that you're working with, and what makes an ideal customer?
One that pays on time.
That's a good one. I
That's a
like
good
those.
one. No, our ideal customer base and the growth trends that we're in now is state and territory government. So they're broadband offices. They're generally state agencies that have received some funding either on their own from the state legislature or through the federal government through one of these pretty big broadband grant programs, BEAD or CPF, that we're supporting. And so again, they tend to be reft with bureaucracy. Both
Hmm.
little p and big P politics come into play. But more importantly, I think it's the delivering of the income, the outcome and impact in the communities that they're destined and targeted in this endeavor. So most of these federal grant programs and state grant programs are aimed at expanding broadband infrastructure and access to telecommunications services to traditionally underserved markets or areas. So whether that's rural, whether that's tribal, in some suburban, even in urban areas, it's not totally, served from what's needed to make sure that we're at the cusp of technology and utilizing technologies where we should be. But I digress on that. What makes the ideal customer? I think one that listens, that understands that our approach, at least for here at Ready, is that we're a partner, not a vendor.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I make it a point to all of our customers is if you've got critical feedback for us, let's sit down and talk. If there's something that you want to accomplish, let's sit down and talk. We'll listen. I think the first rule is to listen. And I'm not just trying to sell you, something X or an outcome
Hmm.
X. I want to listen to
Hmm.
what the problem is or your challenge, and then figure out how we can rise to meet that challenge or that burden or
Hmm.
that opportunity.
Hmm.
And then secondarily, I think it's one who also pays on time. And I say that because and we're laughing, but I say that because oftentimes in this process dealing with state and territory broadband offices, there's a procurement uh, I would say opportunity. It's really a challenge.
Yeah.
But again, it's part of the process. And
Hmm.
so, we laugh. I think of those of us in the space, you can close a deal with the principals, and it might be delayed, 3, 6, 9 months going through,
Yeah.
the final procurement, and then income or revenue realization on top of that
Yeah.
can also be a nightmare. So those are some of the things that we're trying to navigate as we move forward. But an ideal customer in this sense, that's one that can get through that process easily, and once we
Yeah.
deliver, issue that check.
Yeah. 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 Budget cycles are not quick.
Budget cycles, yes, state legislature impasses, bureaucratic red tape.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are real. Those are real.
Yeah. I guess that leaves project management, production management, and cash flow management is some of the major internal challenges that arise inside this kind of a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And they all intersect and they're woven like a fine ball of yarn because we need to hire and expand and grow. We need to expand resources, but we also have to do it commensurate with the revenue realization and income targets that we have for, this year and beyond. And so, yeah, it becomes a challenge. And the key though is the key, at least my challenge is, how do I, diversify that, right? How do we have a mixed, bag, if you will, of our core, state and territory government, but also, getting
Hmm.
back to a B2B or another vertical so that we're
Hmm.
not solely dependent on, one particular way of making money or getting paid, right? And so that's
Yes.
the challenge in and of
Yeah.
itself is ensuring that, that cash flow management, that making sure you've got the right people working on the right initiatives, that they're working, extremely hard and diligently, but they're also taking time off when they need to, and that we're recharging as a company and making sure that we're investing not only just in the growth of our customers, but in the growth of our employees and team members as well.
Very good. Very good. Just going down that line, what is one thing you wish more people, and of course we want to kind of define which people knew about your business?
Oh man, how dynamic and how much it changes. I
Hmm.
just think back just a couple of years ago when AI was at its infancy in the business world. So, it's been on the cusp for several years in development,
Hmm.
but when AI, launched on the scene, it is impacted not just traditional SaaS companies, but tech companies, business community.
Yeah.
It's impacted traditional consultancies, who, we
Yeah.
work with in partnership with. It's changed, and so you not only have to manage it as a tech policy, but what is your ethical or moral stance on it? Or how are we going to utilize artificial intelligence, as we move forward in this, tech driven innovation world, and what does it mean to be an AI enabled entity from a business standpoint? But also looking downstream at the impacts of AI into communities and business sectors, that'll be served. And one of my concerns is, Obviously, if you look at my history and my professional growth and development, it's all centered around, how do we expand these opportunities of access and infrastructure to quote unquote marginalized communities? Because we're at a point now where, if a community is not fully integrating AI and, medicine and health and school and business, you can't make up that gap because it rapidly changes daily. That it's an exponential growth curve function that
Yeah.
becomes harder to solve. So that's some of the things that we have to deal with. But I think as a whole, and it's not just in business, governments is trying to wrap its head around it, both at the local, state, and federal level. And so it's definitely really good for those of us who are thinking about, how to not just take advantage of it, to harness it, but also to minimize the negative aspects of it, as well, to harness it, if you will.
Yeah. Yes, there are risks. And kind of thinking along that line, other than getting paid on time, what would you say is one of the more memorable hurdles you guys are working through?
Oh, wow. I think probably the often sort of feedback I'll call it. I'm not gonna say complaint. I'll say feedback that I get is, working, oftentimes we are in partnership either with the state or territory broadband office, and then there's a consultant, right? A business consultant or a staff augmentation consultant that's there also. In those instances where we're not working directly with the office, either privy of contract or support, we've got to go through that gatekeeping exercise where, the consultant, wants to run everything through their time and materials approach, where,
Right,
we want to, streamline through our platforms or through our
right.
processes, that we've enabled. And so that dynamic, that relationship, becomes a dance that's, in some cases is very hard to learn and to navigate. Um, I would also add that just the changing requirements of the programs that state and territory broadband offices support just make it, very hard to predict outside of 90-day cadence, where things are and where they're going to be. And so that's something that we always have to be in transition about and working with our customers in conversation with them on those
That's a
changing requirements and expectations.
that's a good point. There isn't a lot of standardization out there, is there?
No, there used to be, not anymore. The standardization is pretty much gone, and
Yeah.
trying to figure things out as we move along.
Or make it up.
Well, I'm not, yeah, or make it up. That's true.
Why not?
Why not? Hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah. And just kind of thinking, what's the future look like? Where do you see this going in the next 5 years? And given AI, 5 days might be tricky, but
Yeah.
5 years, 10 years, where do you see this going?
I think overwhelmingly, we need to, as a country, I think we need to invest in critical infrastructure.
Hmm.
And so if you're really going to enable, artificial intelligence, you need the infrastructure at the edge to do it, right? So
Yeah.
whether we're implementing, robust telecommunications or telemedicine or telehealth programs,
Yeah.
you need to have robust infrastructure across the board. So,
Hmm.
fiber, wireless, satellite, you need, hardened infrastructure. I think resilience is key to, developing what we need for the future. So as you and I were talking about before we come here, we've experienced pretty extreme weather here in the mid-Atlantic this year. And our infrastructure is vulnerable in many
Hmm.
instances across telecommunications and energy. So if we're truly going to lead in the business and public policy of AI globally, we
Hmm.
have to have the infrastructure. Communities have to have the training and awareness, both in business and education in the medical field, to really understand and unleash the power of technology. And that's where we are right now. So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see an exponential continued growth and expansion of physical networks. But we need to ensure that they're resilient, that they're hardened, that there's redundancy throughout, and then the training that needs to take place in certain sectors and certain communities also need to be commensurate with the pace of of
Very good.
technological growth and development.
Very good. Very good. I want to kind of change pace a little bit here and kind of look back for a little bit and ask the question, thinking about, you've been with this business a little over 4 years. If you knew then what you know now, both about the business and the industry, if you will, are there things you would have approached differently than you did?
No, that's a really good question. I've been thinking about that lately. And the answer is no.
Hmm.
I think I'll tell you the reason why. One of the things I love most about already is one of our mantras is we don't say no. We don't know what no
Mm-hmm.
is, right? We might not say not yet, not now, but the initial answer is never no. And
Good.
in legal and in government, particularly in government at the federal level, oftentimes the first answer we would get when we would come up with a new way to do something is no, we've never done it that way before, and that's just not, that's not how we do things here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we don't subscribe to that, right? And
Yeah.
so I think I would probably prepare myself mentally more to really think more outside of the box and really understand the value of what not saying no or not right now really means. It's not just a matter of saying yes, it's really thinking through all the implications of what that means. And in a tech company, it's never we can't do it. It's all about the timeline and the deliverable and the impact and the outcome. But that static answer, that first answer is never no, even if it's something that we've never seen before or never tried to address. So in that sense, it's been very invigorating mentally.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
think I would challenge myself to be probably a little bit more flexible and open to different ways and nuances of thinking. But I think I've grown and developed into that now where it's sort of a standard response maybe than that first year in joining coming from both a public policy and a legal background, which tend to be more restrained.
It's an amazing mindset change, isn't it?
It is, and it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Uh-huh.
And that's when we go up when we talk about, before the hiring, but it's also the personal awareness and
Hmm.
growth and development. I think that all, young entrepreneurs or young executives, have to go through. That is constant. I
Hmm.
think if you're static in this industry, excuse the pun, but you're not going to last long. You really have to be flexible and really challenge yourself to think differently and react differently, still guided by a set of principles and morals and ethics. But again, your first answer can't be no, in my opinion. That's just where I come from.
Do you feel liberated with that?
I think yes and no. I think I feel liberated from a sense that every day I get up, I don't know what today's challenge will bring. I know I have a set of challenges that we've been working towards as I go to sleep, but as I wake up, I don't know what may come today or what new
Hmm.
challenge we may be asked to solve. And so from that standpoint, it's really good. But I think also, personally, personal wellness, personal health, I also have to concentrate and make sure I'm doing the things so that I can stay on top of it mentally.
Yeah.
And it is,
Yeah.
they tell you it's a 50, it's never 50-50. It's
No.
80-20, 90-10.
Yeah.
It's, whenever you have a moment that you can, maybe walk or go to the gym or work out or think or meditate, whatever it is,
Yeah.
you have to do it, but you have to do it on a schedule that works for you personally, and more importantly, what's on your plate for that day. Because what they don't tell you is, you don't get an opportunity to say, well, wait, I can't deal with this customer issue or challenge right now because I've really been working hard and I need to take some time off. That just unfortunately just doesn't happen.
Very good. Very good. We've covered an awful lot of really interesting topics here. There's an awful lot of really great insights that this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
we could do this all day, but in the
We
interest
can.
of time, I think I want to start doing some rapid fire questions to head towards kind of wrapping up.
Let's do it.
Um, let's do it. All right. So, what would you say is the key to your key to success?
Well, I think it's trying to maintain a sense of balance.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that that sense of balance is imbalanced, right? So I
Mm.
don't try to make it 50-50 like I talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
But I think over the last probably 6 months to 9 months, I have taken
Mm-hmm.
more of a self-awareness stock of where I am and
Mm-hmm.
understand that I've got to carve out more time for me from a wellness standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and not just have everything that I do, for 18 to 20 hours a day
Yeah.
be aligned with work, because that's the quickest way, for burnout.
Yeah.
But also acknowledging that acknowledging failure is something that I think we don't talk about, enough. And I'm fortunate enough that I haven't experienced a lot of it, but when I have really learned and grown from failure. And so those are the lessons that I learned and that I've taken here, sort of in this phase of my career, is to, again, just making sure I'm taking some time out to protect my physical and mental well-being as well. And that will open me up to, again, being able to address these challenges and lead the team and the company in the way, that it needs to be.
I like to think there's no such thing as failure. There is only data and
Yes.
feedback and an opportunity to look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think so. Can I share with you a story?
Please.
I have not shared this much outside of my family, but I had pretty one big failure, and I think this would help of anyone that hears this. A couple years ago, more than a couple years ago, several years ago, I would say, I had an opportunity to interview with a tech company. This was before Ready,
Hmm.
and I've never failed at anything generally in my life. It's always, I've put the work in, I prepared, but this time I over prepared and I psyched
Mm.
myself out. Now I'll tell you a little bit about it if you don't mind.
Please.
I had an interview with Facebook at the time. I remember I was still with
Hmm.
NTIA, and they had opened up this executive VP role that I thought was perfect for me. It was what I wanted, I thought, and everything that I wanted to my next, career iteration to be. And I over prepared, and I turned myself into someone else. A really good friend of mine, told me you always have to be authentic to who you are. I tried to be someone else that I thought they wanted me to be instead of being authentically who I am and the skills and knowledge and ability that I brought to the table and defending everything that I've worked on. And I didn't. I tried to be something else and it bombed horribly. Steve, when I tell you from, the platform not working, from, supposed to be on a computer, I was on an iPad, the power going out, my answers, it just wasn't me. And unfortunately, I went through sort of a sort of depression after that because I was really hard on myself, that I didn't perform and I didn't, max up what I thought, was an opportunity. And when you talk about, failure and learning opportunity as data, that failure actually led me into this position and the role that I have with Ready. Because at that point, I went through several months. I was really hard on myself. I was, hard on my family, but it was really because I was disappointed.
Mm.
And I was disappointed that I wasn't true to who I was and didn't have enough belief in me that I was enough. And so I made a promise, after, some several months of self-reflection, that any other opportunity, I'm just going to be authentically who I am, what I bring to the table, what I've learned, defending the projects that I've worked on, defending, my knowledge and my skill and my ability. But more importantly, I'm just going to show up as me. And if it works, it's great. And if it doesn't, it's not for me. And I encourage any either young entrepreneur or any executive that you've got to hold yourself true to a set of principles that are going to define how you are going to act in this role, no matter
Oh,
what, good,
fantastic.
bad, indifferent, ugly times, challenges. You've got to lean on those sets of principles that will govern, how you're going to conduct business, how you're going to hold yourself in front of your team, how you're going to uphold those company values, in the midst of really ultra big competitive and competition. So I've learned a lot in my years, and I'd like to think that at this stage, I'm more putting those into practice than I am, learning new ways of doing things.
I love that. That really establishes culture, corporate culture. how are we going to work together in this sandbox, so to speak? That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's hard because people bring their individual competitive idiosyncrasies to the table,
Yeah,
and you want to harness that, right? You want the
yeah.
competition and competitiveness and aggressiveness, but you don't want it such that it messes up the character of the company, where it's unhealthy, where you could step in to help your teammate, but you won't because you won't get credit for it, right? That's not the type of person I want to hire. I want a person that's going to step in because it helps the company grow, and if it helps the company grow, it's going to manifest itself, within P3 or within my team. That's the mindset that I want our folks to have.
There's a huge difference there. Constructive competitiveness and destructive
Yes.
competitiveness. Yeah, and you can go right down the list, pick the attribute.
Yes.
There's a constructive version and a destructive version of it. How do we play? And that's
Yep.
awesome. That's an
Yep.
awesome insight. That kind of fits into this next question. Suppose you and I were at the coffee shop chatting, and somebody walks in talking to his friend, talking about the business that he's getting ready to start up. And maybe you just gave the advice, but what's one piece of advice you would give that person?
Wow. Stop talking in public.
That's one.
That's that's one.
Hmm.
I think mentorship is really important.
Hmm.
It is very important. If I think you need to align yourself with folks who can advise you, and I think that's really important from a business sense. But also sit down and think about visualization and writing things down of what this individual wants to accomplish.
Hmm.
And I think that's executing a plan that's not written down or thought about or visualized.
Hmm.
I think is a huge mistake. I love visualization. I utilize visualization even now, even before we came
Good.
on. I, sat down and really thought about and visualized how I wanted this conversation to go, what I wanted to say, the impact that I wanted to have. And so really be thoughtful and not just cavalier around throwing out ideals
Hmm.
or ideas and ideals, but also being intentional about what you want from that. And that starts with the relationships you build, the people
Hmm.
you rely on, the capital that you're going to seek.
Yep.
Is it going
Right.
to be self-funded or you're going to go to a private source or public source, right? So you really have to sit down and plan and think through, all of those scenarios. So I would encourage that person to sit down and honestly get a business coach, right? And to help you because we don't have it all thought out.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
there are people who bring resources to the table to
Hmm.
help you figure it out. And so
Hmm.
that is some of the advice that I would give. And then the other one is this, yeah, stop talking in public. That's a recipe.
A little detail there, isn't there?
That's too much detail for free. That's too much detail for free.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome. Um, Kind of that fits with what you just said. What's a book you've been reading recently or are reading now that's having impact on how you go down this journey?
That's interesting. You asked that question. I've got a ton of books that I go to. I've been reading a lot of James Baldwin lately.
Hmm.
Some of his historical writing, that really governs the backdrop of, I believe, where we are, as a country. I think honestly, this is probably going to be the most non-traditional answer you've received to this question. It's actually a golf swing help book. It's really helped me, and I've extrapolated that to not just trying to understand golf, but how we must approach life. Right? It's like
Hmm.
you've got to practice these things. You have to, have a set, you have to have a game plan of what you want.
Hmm.
You just don't go out there and swing the club. If you want to be any good, you got to have a game plan and you've got to practice and you have to have a game plan and a set of,
Very good.
of practices and tempos that you work on. So I've really resonated me because I'm struggling with the game of golf right now, as most people are. But I've resonated that in my business life is that again, going back to routine, going back to knowing what works,
Hmm.
going back to what's going to be authentically you and what
Yeah.
you're going to do to help this company, this division, this team succeed. And so I've taken some of those practices and techniques, into how I operate as a business person, being intentional, right? Having a tempo day to day, right? Really understand the landscape and what am I trying to accomplish? Am I just trying to get it on the green or am I trying to get it, into the hole? If I'm trying to aim at the hole, why am I doing that when there's this big green there, right? So the easy part, right? You're not a professional golfer. Don't aim at
Mhm,
the hole, aim towards the green. So extrapolating
mhm,
that back, when we're dealing with our customers, I don't overpromise. I don't
mhm,
tell them that we can do everything. I don't tell them that we're perfect, but I will
mhm,
tell them we'll work our ass off to make sure that whatever they want to accomplish, that we will be there and we'll deliver, on time, on budget. We'll be a partner there with
mhm.
you. And I won't overcharge you and charge you for every little thing, right? Like this is indeed a partnership. So I've taken sort of that approach to taking some other things that are non-traditional and seeing how I can internalize them and into some type of practice.
Very good.
Still
Very
suck at
good. Very.
golf though.
Yeah, I can relate. It sounds like you're having a wonderful journey, a great journey. You've learned a lot. You've done a lot of things. You've discovered many things. What would you say you're most proud of in this part of the journey?
I think the impact that we have had and will have. I think when you look back at my career, it's all been centered
Mhm,
around, how do we make sure, all of our communities across the country and territories, regardless of zip code, have access to robust, high-speed broadband.
mhm,
I'm proud of that. And I think what fuels me is I get paid to do this, right? You
yeah.
can do this thing where you're doing good, but you're also, hopefully trying to be, successful, individually
Mhm,
successful as a company. But to really get to where we need to be as a country, we can't have these pockets of unserved and underserved communities. It's not going
mhm,
to bode well for us competitively globally.
mhm,
It's destructive locally. And so we
mhm,
need to make sure that, everyone everywhere, has the capabilities and the access to technology, that we need. Unfortunately, that business requires me to integrate and operate and do business with private sector, with the public sector, with
mhm,
government, with thought leaders, across the
mhm,
country. And so it really is a blend of everything that makes business and communities
mhm.
grow, that I'm really enjoying about this role and then this journey.
Very good. Very good. Taking that same question, kind of flipping it around, if there was one thing in your business that you could improve with a magic wand this afternoon, what would it be?
Oh wow, we have. How do you make people happy? How do you magically make team members and employees, everyone happy on the same page?
Hmm.
If I could do that today, I would. But
Yeah.
the reality and human behavior is that you don't have that. And so, as we're doing these really good and great things as a company, internally, we got a lot to manage. And I've come to learn too, it's not just people's happiness and excitement about where we're going as a company or what we're doing, but also understanding that each individual or individuals are dealing with things away from ready that
Hmm.
impact their performance, that impact their views on where we're going and what we're doing, and try to be somewhat sensitive to that.
Hmm.
And again, but yeah, if I could make sure that everyone is in the sandbox was happy and playing together and
Yeah.
playing together well, I would sign that magic marker off today. Uh, and that and have insight to where the technology sphere and industry is going. If I could do that, that would make me very happy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people with that question right there. Yeah,
Yes.
that's fantastic. Fantastic. All right, so most important question. How can people who want to know more get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Well, the first thing is go to our website,
Hmm.
ready.net, www.ready.net. And you can see all of the things that we're working on and our view as a company to
Hmm.
ensure, again, our mission is to better services for more families, more households at
Hmm.
lower cost. And you can see across the board, from our SaaS platforms to, our Adams projects, you can see, the things that we're working on to ensure, that we help our customers get there. I think for me, it's just a matter of how do I help and continue this company grow through this excuse me, this current phase of of growth and development that we're on, and trying to both enjoy the journey and the process, but also, work hard and looking forward to where we're going in the future. I want us to operate as a company that's going to be here for a very long time.
Hmm.
And so there's some internal growth and development as a
Hmm.
company that we have to do, and I'm excited to be a part of and help lead us through that process.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Last question. What's most inspiring to you today?
Oh wow, that's a loaded question. I think back, Steve, and you and I talked about this leading up. I've had the benefit in my professional life to have traveled all across this country.
Hmm.
And I have met with some amazing people that I can, fortunately to this day can go anywhere and have a beer or lemonade or play around the golf or just talk to. And I think about them. I think about the people that I met, the communities that, we're trying to impact and the work that's
Hmm.
being done. And I'm encouraged that, despite the noise that's going on, there's some really good people in this country, in this
Mm.
world. I think we have 80% of the things I think we can agree on. It's the
Mm.
20% that's the loudest. And if we can focus on the 80% that we agree on,
Mm.
everyone wants to improve, their livelihood for their children and for their communities, and
Mm.
bring jobs and opportunities and growth. And I think if we can center focus on those things, that would help us. But for me, I think the people that I've met, the companies that I've gotten to work with, the relationships that I've been able to build have really inspired me to keep going and pushing. There's literally not, fortunately, a state. Maybe there's one or two states that I have not been to yet, and a host of countries I haven't been to yet. But my goal is to ultimately go to all of them, and again, keep continually building, those relationships.
That is key. That is a great key. This has been awesome. We've covered an awful lot of really important points. Um, it's you think about a growing business, there's an awful lot. It isn't just the next transaction. It's how do we build the processes? It's how do we build the systems? It's how do we build the teams to run the systems? And how do we, oh, by the way, keep them all working synchronized together towards the same objectives? There is so much there, and
Yeah.
you've touched on an awful lot of those points. That's fantastic.
Can I
So
add one
for
more to that, Steve?
yes,
And
please.
how to do all of that without going crazy.
You want to stay sane and
You,
healthy.
you have to stay sane and healthy to enjoy it. So like you got to integrate that practice into it as well, because there are days that I look up and it's, you look back at where you started in the morning and where you end up in the evening, and you just sometimes you just have to laugh. No one can believe this, right?
How did I get here?
How did I get here? Right? What did I do to deserve this?
Was that in the contract?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not in clause 2.1.
This has been awesome. For everybody watching, for the audience, save the show, come back and re-listen to it a few times. Scott really has shared some really interesting points, and I don't think you can pick them all up in one listening. I think there's an awful lot of interesting nuggets there that need to be digested one at a time and applied one at a time. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications every time a new conversation like this one drops. So thank you to everybody who's joined us and listened this far, and a special thank you to Scott for being with us today. I really appreciate it. This has been a really fun conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.